Though it's a contract employment, but the work is real. It's not that you're working on a dummy project when you work on a contract job. It's the real work. Maybe you're getting a full-time employment with a company, but the project that you're getting is just a copy-paste kind of project. It will not add any value to your portfolio. So when a job seeker finds out that the offer he is getting is for a contract job, his interest level drops by 90%, if not fully. No matter how hard he was trying for that job, the moment the contract word enters the job offer, the interest of many job seekers drops fully. And when somebody finally gets an offer on contract and they tell people, their family, relatives, friends that they got a job on contract, people make assumptions about them. People will pass on judgment and automatically assume that they are little less capable, not good enough. That's why they are getting a job on contract. They are not able to crack through a full-time job just because of their capabilities. And these scenarios honestly impacts mindset of lot of young graduates negatively. They will then forever assume that contract job is something that is offered to a less capable candidate, and if they have got a job on contract, that means it's something about them, they are less capable, and that negative self-talk about their capabilities keep them behind in their career. So today as a HR, I'm going to share with you both the sides of contract jobs, positives as well as negative. Yes, contract jobs do have positives as well, and in fact a lot of them, and also they have negatives as well. Like every other thing, they have both pros and cons, and after today's session you will realize how wrong your perception was about contract jobs. So if that is something that interests you and you want to have more awareness about this, keep on watching. So we'll start with the positive side first. I'll list down all the positive points about a contract job. Before that, I want to put this disclaimer that all the information that I'm sharing is in respect to IT and software industry. No matter what the job is in the IT industry or software companies, be it technical job or non-technical job, support job, HR job, IT administrator, security job, it does not matter. So if you're aiming IT software industry, all these points are applicable for you. So with that note, let's get started with very first point, and that is easy entry. Mostly all job roles in IT industry are open for both type of employment, contract as well as full-time employees. It's not so that contract jobs are separately designed just to hire contract people. It's not so. The same job is offered to a full-time employee as well, and can be offered to a contract job as well. The contract and full-time, it's a type of employment. It has nothing to do with the job role as such. Do not think that the contract jobs that you get to do are crappy and not very useful and will not teach you anything. It's not so. On the same job role, somebody is working on full-time employment mode and somebody is working on contract type of mode. But the interesting part is when companies hire contract employees for the same job role for which they have full-time employees, they expect very less when they take interviews. They do not expect them to be rock stars. They do not expect 100 out of 100 marks when you are giving an interview. Back in their mind, they have this notion that it is anyways a contract mode of employment, and if they do not like the person, they can ask them to leave very easily because that's the nature of the job. So because of this mindset, the interviewer, the company do not grill the candidate to the level they grill a full-time who is applying for a full-time role for the same job. And even the rounds of interview are less when you are applying for a contract job. Maybe there will be just a single round of interview, or at the max just two. Unlikely for a full-time job where you end up giving 5-6 interview rounds as well. So getting entry in the company is easy. And that brings to our second positive point, which is it's easy to get yourself noticed with your performance. For the same reason that we just discussed in the point first, people do not expect much from you. For the same reason that it's okay, it's just a contract employee. If he or she does not perform well, then we can let them go very easily. So that's your chance, because the expectation bar is so low, the starting point is so low. Even if you perform like 20-30% more than what is expected, your performance will be highlighted. On the contrary, if a full-time employee is doing a lot and is working a lot to get himself noticed, he will find it difficult, because that will be the part of his KRA. Whatever extra he's trying to do and trying to impress the manager, people will assume that it's a part of his KRA. He should be doing that. He must do that in order to be a good employee. But when an employee is on contract, people do not expect much, and when you do little more than your KRAs and little more than expectations, you just shine. And if you have very good work ethics, you deliver on time, you behave well, you project that professionalism on the job, then that's your chance that can even make you get converted into a full-time employee in the company. And remember, when you get converted from a contract employee to a full-time employee, there's no interview again. So you get an easy entry to a full-time position through the way of contract employment. If you feel you're not confident enough and you'll not be able to crack difficult interview rounds, 6-7 interview rounds of big tech companies, and you feel that because of this you'll be forever missing on the opportunities to work with those tech companies, then think again. Contract employment can give you that exposure very easily. You see, a lot of employees dream about working in FANG companies, your Facebook, Google, Apple, and all of that. So obviously these companies have very vigorous interview rounds, 6-7 rounds even for a fresher position. But if you are joining on a contract position in these companies, interview rounds will not be that vigorous, and the number of rounds will also be less, because you are hired on either on a third party payroll, or you are working directly on contract with company. But you still get to work inside that company, you still get to work with the people in that company, with great teams. You get to experience the culture, you work on the real product, you work like other people are working, you get that experience, that skill, and you learn everything what a full-time learns. What you need is the right mindset. I know there are a lot of negative points as well for a contract job. We'll discuss that also. But to lose out on an opportunity just because it's on contract is a silly thing in my point of view. So if you got an opportunity on contract with some great company and you are not able to decide whether to take it or not, think again. Think again and evaluate the kind of experience and exposure that you'll get there. With that, let's move to our third positive point, which is it's easy to switch jobs. Normally, if you switch too many organizations in your career, it is seen as a very bad thing, and recruiter and HRs label you as not a very stable candidate. Though it's changing slowly, the mindsets are changing a little bit. But if you are on contract and you are switching your job every year, to increase your CTC, even then you will not be labeled as unstable candidate. You can mention in your resume, or when you tell in your interview that you switched because it was a contract job, the contract came to an end, you can always say that. It will never impact negatively in your interview or in your resume shortlisting if you mention this. So you can get your CTC hiked every year. You can gain a 30% hike every year. You will get to work on a different project. People work for several years on a single project, so though they have like 5 years of experience, and out of that if they have worked 4 years on the same project, it's kind of redundant skill that they have, because they are working on the same skill set, they are working on the same technology. So I'm not saying to switch every year, because you should be spending a considerable amount of time in a project so that you understand the project in totality. But I'm trying to pitch you an idea that if CTC is a problem and you feel by switching you can increase your CTC in your career, and after 5 years you can have a very good CTC, then if you are on contract, switching becomes very easy. Now moving on to our next point, which is the scope of learning. When you start looking for a job as a fresher, as a graduate, and you are not able to find any full-time job, and you get one offer for a contract job, then most of the people do not consider it enough, and they think it's better to wait for a full-time offer and not work on a contract job. Now in this scenario, it's a total loss for you, because it's always a good idea to start on something than just sitting and job seeking. Obviously you can, if you're not interested in a contract job, you can always seek out a full-time job in parallel while you're doing your contract job, and it will add to your experience only. You will have a lot of scope for learning, you will learn a lot of things, though it's a contract employment, but the work is real. It's not that you're working on a dummy project when you work on a contract job. It's the real work, the real experience that you get. So it's always better to opt for something than just sitting idle. And contract jobs give you immense scope of learning, because when you are an outsider in the company, you're working on contract maybe on third party or maybe on a direct contract with the company, team members and even managers give you a lot of work. Though initially it might frustrate you that why that full-time employee is getting less work than me, why I have to do a lot of work like this. Believe me, that work will bring the best out of you. Your initial years, you are supposed to do that much work, because only then you will grow in your career and you will have multiple skills in your portfolio to project. When you give an interview after 2 years of experience, an employee, a full-time employee who has always worked on a very easy project, got a very easy task to do and did the same thing for 2 years, will always have less skill set than a contract employee who was dumped with lot of work from all sort of projects. He will have such rich skill set that the CTC and the position that they get after 2 years of interview will be much higher than a full-time employee when they switch jobs. So I'm trying to tell you that you have that scope of learning. If you take it and if you use it as an opportunity, it will be beneficial for your career. So these were 4 very positive sides of being on a contract job. Now let's discuss some negatives as well. The first and very common negative thing about being on a contract job is the lack of belongingness. When you're working in a company as a third party payroll person or on a direct contract in the company, you'll always have this feeling inside you that I am an outsider, I do not belong here. The reason behind this, why you are feeling this way, is contributed by a lot of factors, and I'll discuss those factors in upcoming point. But you have to remember in your mind that why you are here, what's your purpose. You are here for learning and everything else is secondary. And do not get distracted with such things. Fulfill your purpose and move on. Second negative thing about being on contract is less benefits. Obviously, when you are on contract, you will not have same benefits as a full-time employees. You will not have medical insurance as they have. You will not have same number of leaves as they have. You maybe do not get free lunch in the cafeteria as they get. So all of these benefits and little things can stack up in your mind, and you might feel that why I have less benefits. I also want to enjoy all those benefits which these people are enjoying. For sure, you can. With your performance, you can shine out and you can grab an opportunity to get converted into the company. But remember, the job itself is not showing you any negative. You are there for a purpose, and these things obviously make you feel good, additional benefit. You feel included, you feel good, you feel motivated to do your work. But as I said, fulfill your purpose and move on. Now moving on to our third negative point, which is less opportunities. Now there can be several new projects that are coming in the company where you are working as a contract employee. So by default, contract employees are not pitched for that new opportunity, new project. Obviously, the full-time employees are always given that first chance to work on that new thing, new product. And even for the on-sites, it's always the full-time employees who are sent on-site by that company in their US office or wherever that they have another office or the opportunity. So the full-time employees get those opportunities first, because the company has to provide opportunities to its full-time employees first. That's their responsibility. And I guess this is the commitment because of which they do not want more full-time employees for that particular job if they do not have a headcount approved. They get contractors to work on that same job. So the reason for less opportunities is not related to the intellect or capabilities of that contract employee. It's not so that the company is assuming that contract employee will not be able to do the task successfully. It's just that company has to promote and give opportunities to their full-time employees first, because that's their first commitment. With that, moving on to our last negative point, which is pay. The pay rate for contract employees is comparatively lesser than full-time employees most of the time. There can be cases where a contract employee is paid more than full-time employees for the same job, but those are different scenarios. But mostly when you are in early stages of your career, you will find that full-time employees are paid more than the contract employees. And there is a reason for that, because the company where you are working as a contract employee have a different pay standards than the company on whose payroll you are. And why those companies pay less? Because that's their business. They are trying to save some margin in between. Say for example, for your work, if the company is paying to that parent company 100 rupees per month for your employment, then they will pay you, I think, 50 or 60 rupees out of that, and they will save that 40 rupees as their margin, because they will also have to operate in some way and they need that margin to survive in the market. So that's why that pay is always less, because somebody is cutting out that margin from that pay rate. So these were the most popular negative sides of being on a contract or working on a contract. But I believe it's slowly, very slowly though, is changing in India. Outside India, it's very different though. People choose to work on contract by their own will. They choose contract employment over the full-time employment because they know they get a certain sense of freedom by being on contract. They are not liable to whatever full-time conditions are. They do not want to commit to those full-time employee conditions, so they go for contract employment so that they can move easily, so that they can switch the jobs easily. So everything has its pros and cons, and so does a contract job has. You should see what learning it can bring to you, how it is better than the other offer that you are getting. Maybe you are getting a full-time employment with a company, but the project that you are getting is just a copy paste kind of project. It will not add any value to your portfolio. So it's always better to evaluate the job on the basis of work, the project that you'll be getting there to do, instead of evaluating it on the type of employment. So guys, that was all what I wanted to discuss with you on the topic of contract employment. I hope you derived some value out of this conversation and it helps you somewhere in your career. So with that, I'm signing off. You keep on watching more content on Corporate Diaries to be corporate ready, and I'll see you in my next video. Till then, stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye.